In the heart of New Orleans, where the humid air carries whispers of history and the streets pulse with the rhythm of jazz, a night unlike any other was about to unfold. The year was 2025, and the city, resilient as ever, stood at the crossroads of tradition and change. Preservation Hall, a sanctuary of music and memory, prepared to host a charity concert aimed at healing the scars left by relentless climate disasters. Yet, unbeknownst to the gathered crowd, the evening would transcend its noble purpose, unraveling secrets and igniting revelations that would ripple far beyond the French Quarter. Among the attendees was Yvette Thompson, a soft-spoken singer from Houston whose presence seemed unremarkable at first glance. But Yvette was no ordinary guest. Beneath the unassuming exterior of thick-rimmed glasses and understated clothing lay Beyoncé Knowles-Carter, the global icon who had chosen this night to shed her stardom and step into the shoes of an anonymous dreamer. Disguised with meticulous detail, she sought to experience her art from the vantage point of her fans, to feel the raw, unfiltered connection that fame often obscured. A delicate bracelet on her wrist, identical to one she wore as Beyoncé, was the only clue to her true identity, a detail that would later prove pivotal. Backstage, Marcus Rivera, a gifted yet overlooked local musician, wrestled with his nerves. His dream of sharing his music with the world felt tantalizingly close but achingly out of reach. Clutching a creased photograph of Beyoncé for courage, he rehearsed under his breath, unaware that his idol was just a few feet away, blending into the crowd. Meanwhile, Detective Amara Johnson, stationed at the event under the guise of security, scanned the room with a sharp, discerning gaze. Her role extended beyond ensuring safety. She was a woman navigating the fraught dynamics of race and power within her profession, her notebook filling with observations that would later draw unexpected connections. Overseeing the event was Sophie Devereaux, a poised yet calculating organizer whose polished exterior masked a labyrinth of ulterior motives. Her sharp eyes lingered on Yvette, a flicker of disapproval crossing her face. Sophie's whispers about maintaining the right image hinted at an unspoken prejudice, a thread that would soon unravel. As the evening progressed, the air in the hall grew electric, charged with the anticipation of music and the unspoken tensions simmering beneath the surface. When Yvette was coaxed into an impromptu performance, her voice, rich and unguarded, silenced the room. The melody she sang, hauntingly familiar to some, carried echoes of an unreleased Beyoncé song, a breadcrumb that hinted at the truth. Marcus, emboldened by her encouragement, delivered a soul-stirring performance that left the audience spellbound. Yet, as applause thundered, a power outage plunged the hall into darkness. In the chaos, the fragile boundaries between personas and realities began to blur, forcing each character to confront their truths. As the night unfolded, the city's vibrant spirit became a mirror for its inhabitants' struggles and aspirations. Yvette's journey challenged perceptions of identity and privilege, while Marcus's triumph became a testament to resilience. Detective Johnson faced a moral crossroads, her pursuit of justice clashing with institutional constraints. And Sophie's hidden agenda, once exposed, cast a harsh light on the music industry's entrenched inequalities. In the dim glow of the final moments, the power of music emerged as the evening's unifying force, breaking down walls and revealing the shared humanity within the hall. When the last notes faded, the echoes lingered, carrying with them a message of transformation. In a city that thrived on reinvention, the night became a legend, a reminder that beneath every facade lies a story waiting to be told. The story unfolds in the sprawling realm of Calvaries, a land of fractured kingdoms and ancient mysteries. Once a unified empire, Calvaries is now a patchwork of city-states and wild territories, its landscapes as diverse as its inhabitants. To the north, jagged mountains pierce the sky, their peaks perpetually cloaked in snow, while the southern regions are dominated by vast deserts shimmering under an unrelenting sun. Between these extremes lie dense forests, rolling plains, and ruins of a forgotten age, where whispers of magic still linger. The air is thick with tension as political alliances crumble, and rumors of a long-dormant evil resurface, threatening to plunge the land into chaos once more. At the heart of the tale is Arinder, a brooding swordsman with a mysterious past. Once a celebrated knight of the now-defunct Order of the Silver Flame, Arinder is haunted by the betrayal that led to the Order's downfall. His scarred face and weathered armor tell stories he refuses to share, and his only companion is a sentient blade named Vyrn, a relic of the old empire. Vyrn speaks in a voice only Arinder can hear, often guiding, or taunting, him as he wanders the land in search of redemption. Arinder's initial motivation is simple: to uncover the truth behind the betrayal that destroyed his order and to bring justice to those responsible. Joining him is Kayla, a fiercely independent thief with a knack for getting into, and out of, trouble. Hailing from the bustling port city of Dravant, Kayla grew up on the streets, learning to survive through cunning and quick reflexes. Her sharp wit and nimble fingers have earned her both allies and enemies in equal measure. Despite her roguish demeanor, Kayla harbors a deep-seated desire to find her long-lost brother, who vanished during a raid on their city years ago. Her path crosses with Arinder's when she attempts to steal Vyrn, mistaking it for an ordinary sword, only to find herself drawn into his quest. The third key figure is Lyrian, a young scholar and mage in training from the secluded Tower of Eltharion. Unlike the others, Lyrian has lived a sheltered life, her days consumed by the study of ancient texts and the practice of arcane arts. She is driven by an insatiable curiosity about the world beyond the tower and a desire to prove herself to the elder mages, who see her as reckless and inexperienced. Lyrian's involvement begins when she discovers a fragment of an ancient prophecy that hints at the return of a dark force tied to Arinder's past. Her decision to leave the tower and join the group is both an act of defiance and a leap of faith. The relationships between the trio are complex and evolving. Arinder's stoic nature often clashes with Kayla's irreverence, while Lyrian's idealism serves as a counterbalance to their cynicism. Despite their differences, they are bound by a shared sense of purpose and the growing realization that their fates are intertwined. As they journey through Calvaries, the group encounters breathtaking vistas and perilous challenges, from enchanted forests where time seems to stand still to crumbling fortresses teeming with forgotten horrors. The world around them is as much a character as they are, its beauty and danger shaping their journey and testing their resolve. Together, they must navigate a land on the brink of collapse, uncover hidden truths, and confront the shadows of their own pasts. In a night of hidden truths and transformative music, Beyoncé, disguised as Yvette, ignited a chain reaction of revelations at Preservation Hall, a power outage exposing Sophie's manipulative agenda, Detective Johnson's moral crossroads, and Marcus's discovery of his own voice, all culminating in a performance that shattered illusions, confronted biases, and united a divided crowd in awe. The small coastal town of Windmere was a place where dreams often felt as fleeting as the ocean breeze. For Emma, a fiercely independent artist, her goal was clear: to open her own gallery and prove to herself and the doubting locals that her work could thrive beyond the confines of her cluttered attic studio. Across town, her childhood friend-turned-rival, Lucas, a pragmatic marine biologist, had his own mission: securing funding to protect the fragile coral reefs near the bay. Both were driven by passion, but their paths had diverged long ago, leaving a trail of unresolved tension between them. Emma's first obstacle came swiftly. The building she had her eye on for the gallery was suddenly put up for auction, and a wealthy developer from the city showed interest in turning it into a luxury spa. With limited savings and no financial backing, Emma found herself scrambling to gather resources, all while battling her self-doubt. Meanwhile, Lucas faced his own setback when his grant proposal was rejected due to insufficient data. The reefs were deteriorating faster than he anticipated, and without immediate action, the ecosystem he devoted his life to studying could collapse. Both felt the weight of their respective struggles, yet neither was willing to ask for help. Their lives collided again during a town hall meeting, where Emma passionately argued against the developer's plans, and Lucas presented his findings on the environmental impact of increased tourism. Though their goals were different, their shared frustration with the town's apathy reignited a spark of camaraderie. Over coffee afterward, they tentatively began to reconnect, their conversations oscillating between heated debates and moments of genuine understanding. Emma's fiery determination clashed with Lucas's methodical approach, but beneath the surface, they realized their goals weren't entirely unrelated. Protecting the town's natural beauty aligned with preserving its cultural identity, something both cared deeply about. As their relationship deepened, new subplots emerged. Emma discovered that her younger brother, Max, had secretly been skipping school to work at the developer's construction site, hoping to earn enough money to help their struggling family. Torn between anger and admiration for his intentions, Emma grappled with how to guide him without crushing his spirit. At the same time, Lucas found himself at odds with his mentor, Dr. Calloway, who believed the reefs were beyond saving and suggested redirecting efforts to other projects. Lucas's growing bond with Emma began to challenge his rigid worldview, pushing him to consider creative solutions he might have dismissed before. Together, Emma and Lucas devised a plan to host a community festival, showcasing both her artwork and his research to raise awareness and funds. The event would serve as a platform for Emma to gain support for her gallery and for Lucas to gather local backing for his conservation efforts. But as they worked side by side, new challenges arose. Old wounds resurfaced, and their differing approaches to problem-solving threatened to derail their progress. Yet, through the friction, they began to see each other in a new light, their shared vulnerabilities forging a bond neither had anticipated. By the time the festival approached, the stakes had grown higher. Emma's gallery dreams and Lucas's conservation project were no longer just personal ambitions, they had become intertwined with the town's future. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they began to believe that together, they might stand a chance against the odds. The morning began like any other in the quiet coastal town of Greywater. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden glow on the docks as fishermen prepared their boats for the day. For Eleanor Hayes, the routine was comforting, a brisk walk to the bakery, a quick chat with Mrs. Calloway about the weather, and then back to her bookshop to open for business. But everything changed when a deafening explosion shattered the stillness. The sound echoed through the streets, sending seagulls screeching into the sky and drawing townsfolk out of their homes in alarm. Smoke billowed from the harbor, a thick, black plume rising like a signal of impending chaos. Eleanor froze mid-step, her heart pounding. The harbor was the lifeblood of Greywater, its fishing industry the town's main source of income. Rushing toward the commotion, she joined a growing crowd of onlookers. The scene was one of devastation. A fishing trawler, the Mariner's Hope, had been ripped apart, its charred remains bobbing in the water. Shouts filled the air as firefighters and volunteers scrambled to contain the blaze. Among the chaos, Eleanor noticed something strange, a figure cloaked in black slipping away from the scene, disappearing into the maze of alleys. The sight sent a chill down her spine. This wasn't an accident. The incident left the town reeling. Rumors spread like wildfire, each more outlandish than the last. Some whispered about faulty equipment, others about sabotage. But for Eleanor, the image of the shadowy figure lingered. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was deliberate, a calculated act meant to send a message. Her suspicions deepened when she returned to her shop that evening to find an envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a single note, written in jagged handwriting, *, stay out of it. The words were cryptic but unmistakably threatening. Eleanor's hands trembled as she read them, her mind racing with questions. Why her? What did she have to do with the explosion? Despite the warning, Eleanor couldn't ignore the gnawing sense of responsibility. The Mariner's Hope had belonged to her late father's closest friend, a man who had treated her like family. She owed it to him, and to the town, to uncover the truth. But as she began digging into the incident, she quickly realized she wasn't the only one searching for answers. Greywater's police chief, a grizzled veteran named Marcus Kane, was already investigating, though his focus seemed to be elsewhere. Leave it to the professionals, he told her curtly when she tried to share her concerns. but Eleanor could see the frustration in his eyes, the weight of a man who knew more than he was letting on. The explosion at the harbor marked the end of Greywater's peaceful routine and the beginning of something far darker. Eleanor's quiet life was upended, replaced by a dangerous puzzle that demanded to be solved. The shadowy figure, the cryptic note, and the growing tension in the town all pointed to a larger conspiracy. And as much as she wanted to return to the safety of her bookshop, Eleanor knew she couldn't turn back. The stakes were too high, the danger too real. Something, or someone, was threatening the very heart of Greywater, and she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The power outage at Preservation Hall cast the venue into a tense silence, broken only by murmurs and the shuffle of feet. In the darkness, a single flashlight beam cut through, held by Detective Amara Johnson as she instinctively stepped forward to calm the crowd. Her voice, steady and authoritative, reassured the audience that the situation was under control. Yet, her mind raced, piecing together the oddities of the evening, Sophie's covert glances, the enigmatic Yvette, and the peculiar energy that seemed to ripple through the room even before the lights went out. Meanwhile, Marcus Rivera found himself backstage, gripping the vintage microphone engraved with BK. It had been knocked over in the confusion, and as he held it, a strange sense of destiny washed over him. Unbeknownst to Marcus, Sophie Devereaux was watching him from the shadows, her expression unreadable. She was on edge, her hidden agenda teetering on the brink of exposure. The microphone, a relic of Beyoncé's early career, was more than a sentimental artifact. It was tied to a long-buried scandal involving Sophie and her manipulation of rising artists, a truth she desperately wanted to keep hidden. At the same time, in the audience, Yvette, or rather, Beyoncé, felt the weight of her dual identity pressing down on her. The bracelet her mother had given her slipped into view, catching the faint glow of a nearby phone screen. A young girl seated beside her noticed it, her eyes widening in recognition. The girl whispered excitedly to her mother, sparking a ripple of speculation that began to spread through the crowd. Beyoncé's carefully constructed disguise was unraveling faster than she could anticipate, and she realized she might not leave the hall unnoticed. Adding to the tension, a new character emerged from the crowd, Elijah Eli Carter, a local journalist known for his investigative reporting on corruption in the music industry. Eli had been quietly observing the event, drawn by rumors of Sophie's questionable dealings. The blackout provided the perfect opportunity for him to dig deeper, his sharp eyes scanning the room for clues. He noticed Sophie's nervous pacing and Yvette's peculiar behavior, his instincts telling him that the night's chaos was no coincidence. As the backup generators flickered on, dim lights illuminated the hall, and the audience erupted into applause. Marcus seized the moment, stepping onto the stage with the vintage microphone still in hand. His voice cracked as he began to speak, but Yvette's earlier encouragement echoed in his mind, steadying him. He launched into an impromptu performance, his raw emotion captivating the room. The melody he chose was hauntingly familiar, echoing the unreleased Beyoncé song Yvette had hummed earlier. The crowd fell into a hushed awe, their attention glued to the stage. Detective Johnson, still observing from the edge of the room, felt a shift in the atmosphere. Her gaze returned to Yvette, whose expression betrayed a mix of pride and apprehension as Marcus sang. Johnson's suspicions deepened, but so did her empathy. She began to question whether her role as a protector was at odds with her duty to uncover the truth. Torn between her growing admiration for the performers and her obligation to investigate, she resolved to keep a closer eye on Sophie, sensing that the organizer's secrets were the key to the night's mysteries. As Marcus's song reached its crescendo, Sophie's facade began to crack. She stepped forward, interrupting the performance under the guise of thanking the audience for their patience. Her words were carefully chosen, but her tone betrayed her unease. Eli, watching from the sidelines, discreetly began recording her speech, sensing an opportunity to expose the truth. The night had become a battleground of hidden motives, where every word and action carried weight. In the heart of New Orleans, the lines between ambition, deception, and authenticity blurred further. As the music swelled once more, the stage was set for revelations that would challenge not only the characters but also the audience's perception of identity, power, and the transformative nature of art. The power outage cast the preservation hall into a tense, unsettling silence, broken only by murmurs and shuffling feet. In the darkness, Yvette's heart pounded as she instinctively reached for the bracelet on her wrist, a grounding reminder of her dual identity. Nearby, Marcus clutched his guitar, the weight of the moment pressing down on him as he wondered if this was a sign to retreat or rise. The crowd, now illuminated only by the faint glow of cell phone screens, buzzed with unease, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Detective Amara Johnson, her instincts sharpened by years of undercover work, immediately scanned the room for signs of foul play. Her gaze fell on Sophie Devereaux, who appeared unusually calm amidst the chaos, her phone screen reflecting a cryptic smirk. Amara's growing suspicions about Sophie deepened as she noted the organizers' deliberate movements toward the vintage microphone. Something about the way Sophie lingered near it felt calculated, as though the blackout had been orchestrated to serve a hidden purpose. Meanwhile, Yvette felt a hand brush against hers in the confusion. It was Marcus, who whispered, "You okay?" His voice carried a vulnerability that struck her. For a brief moment, she forgot her disguise, her instinct to comfort him overpowering her need for secrecy. "We'll get through this," she replied softly, her words laced with an authenticity that caught Marcus off guard. He felt an inexplicable connection to her, as though her encouragement carried the weight of someone who truly understood his struggles. As the backup generators flickered to life, the stage lights returned, casting an eerie glow over the room. Sophie stepped forward, microphone in hand, her voice cutting through the tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Let's continue this night of unity and resilience." But her words rang hollow to Amara, who noted the subtle shift in Sophie's demeanor, a calculated attempt to regain control. Amara's notebook now bore more than just sketches, it held the beginnings of a conspiracy she couldn't yet piece together. The night's tension reached a boiling point when Sophie abruptly announced a surprise duet, calling Marcus and Yvette to the stage. Marcus froze, his stage fright threatening to consume him. Yvette, sensing his hesitation, took his hand and whispered, "You've got this." Her touch steadied him, and together they stepped into the spotlight. As the first notes of their performance filled the room, the audience was captivated by their harmony, a blend of raw emotion and undeniable talent. But as they sang, Amara noticed something peculiar. The melody they performed was unmistakably tied to an unreleased Beyoncé track. Her eyes darted between Yvette and the bracelet peeking from under her sleeve. The resemblance was too striking to ignore. Amara's internal conflict deepened. Should she confront Yvette and risk derailing the night, or stay silent and allow the truth to reveal itself naturally? The performance reached its climax, and the audience erupted in applause. Yet, the night was far from over. As Sophie's true motives began to surface, Marcus found himself questioning whether the opportunity he had longed for was genuine or part of a larger manipulation. Yvette, grappling with her secret identity, realized that her experiment in anonymity had unearthed truths about herself and her music that she hadn't anticipated. And Amara, torn between duty and morality, prepared to make a decision that could alter the course of the evening, and everyone's lives, forever. The night unfolded with an air of anticipation as the dimly lit preservation hall buzzed with energy. Yvette's unassuming presence had already begun to stir curiosity, her soulful voice during the jam session leaving whispers in her wake. Marcus, emboldened by her encouragement, found himself stepping into the spotlight with a confidence he never knew he possessed. His performance was electrifying, his voice carrying the weight of his struggles and dreams. As the crowd erupted into applause, he locked eyes with Yvette, their shared melody lingering like an unspoken secret. For a fleeting moment, his self-doubt seemed to dissolve, replaced by a spark of belief. Backstage, Sophie Devereaux grew increasingly agitated. Her sharp gaze darted between the performers and the audience, her muttered complaints about controlling the narrative hinting at a deeper unease. She clutched her clipboard tightly, her carefully curated event teetering on the brink of chaos. Detective Amara Johnson, ever observant, noticed Sophie's erratic behavior and began piecing together fragments of a puzzle she didn't yet fully understand. Her notebook filled with sketches and notes, including the striking resemblance between Yvette and Beyoncé, fueled her internal conflict. Torn between her duty and a nagging suspicion, Amara's resolve wavered. As the vintage microphone engraved with B.K. Yvette, drawn to the artifact, hesitated before stepping forward. Her fingers brushed the microphone, and for a moment, the line between her two identities blurred. The crowd fell silent as she began to sing, her voice raw and unfiltered, carrying an emotional depth that resonated with everyone present. The melody, hauntingly familiar, struck a chord with Marcus, who joined her in harmony. The song's origin remained a mystery to the audience, but its power was undeniable. Then, the power outage plunged the hall into darkness. Gasps rippled through the crowd as tension reached its peak. In the confusion, Sophie's voice could be heard barking orders, her composure slipping. Amara instinctively moved through the room, her flashlight cutting through the shadows. She caught a glimpse of Yvette's bracelet, the same one Beyoncé was known to wear, and her suspicions crystallized. Yet, instead of confronting her, Amara hesitated, grappling with the implications of exposing the truth. The darkness seemed to amplify the unspoken conflicts in the room, forcing each character to confront their inner turmoil. When the lights flickered back on, the atmosphere had shifted. Yvette, visibly shaken, stepped back from the microphone, her disguise feeling like a fragile barrier. Marcus, emboldened by the shared performance, took the lead, addressing the crowd with a newfound confidence. His words, filled with gratitude and hope, resonated deeply, earning him a standing ovation. Meanwhile, Amara approached Sophie, their confrontation laced with tension. Sophie's carefully hidden agenda began to unravel as Amara pressed her for answers, the layers of manipulation and prejudice within the event slowly coming to light. As the final chords of the night's performance began, the room seemed to exhale collectively. Yvette's transformation into Beyoncé was still undiscovered, but the impact of her presence had already begun to ripple through the lives of those around her. Marcus had found his voice, Amara faced a moral crossroads, and Sophie's grip on her curated image was slipping. The night's events had set the stage for revelations that would challenge perceptions, ignite change, and leave an indelible mark on everyone present. In the heart of New Orleans, the seeds of transformation had been sown, carried by the power of music and the courage to confront the masks we wear. The dim light of Preservation Hall flickered back to life after the brief outage, revealing a room charged with anticipation. Yvette, still cloaked in her carefully constructed disguise, stood near the vintage microphone, her fingers brushing against its engraved initials. The crowd murmured, their curiosity piqued by the soulful voice that had emerged from the shadows moments earlier. Marcus, emboldened by her presence, stepped forward to join her, his earlier stage fright replaced by a newfound determination. Their voices intertwined in harmony, the unreleased melody they shared now taking center stage. Unbeknownst to them, Sophie watched from the wings, her expression a mix of frustration and unease as her grip tightened on her clipboard. Detective Johnson, now hyper-aware of the dynamics unfolding, moved closer to the stage. Her earlier suspicions about Sophie deepened as she recalled overhearing a cryptic phone call about controlling the narrative. Her gaze flickered to Yvette, whose uncanny resemblance to Beyoncé gnawed at her instincts. Yet, something in Yvette's earnest demeanor made her hesitate. For the first time in years, Johnson felt the weight of her badge conflict with her moral compass. She jotted down another note, her sketch of Yvette now more detailed, though she left it unfinished. As the performance reached its crescendo, Marcus's confidence soared. He improvised a heartfelt verse, paying homage to New Orleans and the resilience of its people. Yvette's eyes glistened with emotion, her voice lifting his words higher. The crowd erupted in applause, their skepticism melting into awe. Among them, a young girl clutching a homemade sign that read "Music Heals" caught Yvette's attention. The girl's wide-eyed wonder reminded her of her own journey, sparking a moment of vulnerability that nearly broke her facade. Backstage, Sophie's carefully curated event began to unravel. A stagehand accidentally knocked over a stack of papers, revealing a list of performers Sophie had deliberately excluded from the lineup. The names, predominantly black artists, were circled with notes like "too political" and "not marketable." Another staff member, horrified by the discovery, snapped a photo and slipped it into Detective Johnson's hand as she passed by. The detective's jaw tightened as she realized the depth of Sophie's manipulation. Meanwhile, Marcus, still riding the high of his performance, turned to Yvette. "You've got something special," he said, his voice trembling with sincerity. "Thank you for believing in me." Yvette smiled, her hand instinctively brushing the bracelet on her wrist. Before she could respond, Sophie stormed onto the stage, her composed veneer cracking. "This isn't what we planned," she hissed, her words directed at Yvette. The crowd fell silent, sensing the tension. Detective Johnson stepped forward, her voice cutting through the charged atmosphere. "Is there something you'd like to share, Ms. Devereaux?" Sophie faltered, her carefully constructed image crumbling under the weight of scrutiny. Yvette seized the moment, her voice steady but firm. "Music isn't about plans or images. It's about truth." The crowd erupted in support, their cheers drowning out Sophie's protests. As the night drew to a close, Yvette slipped away, her identity still intact but her heart forever changed. Marcus, now the star of the evening, stood in the spotlight, his confidence shining brighter than ever. Detective Johnson, armed with evidence, prepared to expose Sophie's wrongdoing, knowing it would come at a personal cost. And in the heart of New Orleans, the echoes of their shared melody lingered, a testament to the power of authenticity and the courage to challenge the status quo. The power outage threw Preservation Hall into a tense, disorienting silence, broken only by the murmurs of the crowd and the creak of shifting floorboards. Yvette, her heart pounding, instinctively reached for the bracelet on her wrist, a grounding reminder of her dual identity. Marcus, still clutching his photo of Beyoncé, felt a surge of panic but also a strange calm as he remembered Yvette's earlier words of encouragement. In the shadows, Detective Johnson's instincts kicked in. She scanned the room, her hand hovering near her concealed weapon, ready for anything. Sophie, meanwhile, slipped backstage, her movements deliberate and cloaked in secrecy. As backup power flickered on, dim lights illuminated the hall, casting eerie shadows. The vintage microphone with the initials B.K. Yvette's gaze. She stepped toward it, her voice trembling as she began to hum the melody she and Marcus had shared earlier. The haunting tune silenced the murmurs, and one by one, the audience turned to listen. Marcus, emboldened by her courage, joined her on stage, their voices blending in harmony. The crowd erupted into applause, unaware that the melody was a hidden Beyoncé composition, a clue to Yvette's true identity. Detective Johnson, however, was piecing together the puzzle. Her sketch of Yvette, the bracelet, and the uncanny familiarity of her voice all pointed to a revelation too extraordinary to believe. Yet, her attention was divided as Sophie reappeared, her expression cold and calculating. Sophie's hidden agenda came into focus. She had orchestrated the concert not just for charity but to manipulate public perception, using the event to secure her own power within the industry. Yvette's unexpected presence threatened to unravel her plans, and Sophie's frustration boiled over. As tensions mounted, Sophie grabbed a microphone and addressed the crowd, her voice dripping with condescension. She dismissed Yvette's performance as a distraction, subtly undermining her in a way that revealed her biases. Marcus, emboldened by the crowd's support, stepped forward to defend Yvette, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "Music isn't about image," he declared. "It's about heart, and Yvette just showed us more heart than any of us could have asked for." The crowd cheered, but Sophie's icy glare landed on Detective Johnson, whose notebook was now full of damning observations. Johnson faced a choice: expose Sophie's manipulations and risk her career, or stay silent and let the night's injustices go unchallenged. The weight of her decision pressed heavily, but the sight of Yvette and Marcus standing together, defying expectations, tipped the scales. She stepped forward, her voice clear and authoritative, and began to recount Sophie's actions, turning the tide of the evening. In the midst of this confrontation, Yvette made a choice of her own. She removed her glasses and subtly adjusted her prosthetics, allowing her true identity to shine through. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Beyoncé stood before them, her voice steady as she addressed the room. "Tonight wasn't about me," she said. "It was about the power of music to bring us together, to break down walls, and to remind us of what truly matters." The final song began, a powerful anthem of unity led by Beyoncé, Marcus, and the audience, their voices rising as one. Detective Johnson closed her notebook, a faint smile on her lips, while Sophie slipped away unnoticed, her plans undone. As the last notes echoed through the hall, the crowd erupted into a standing ovation, their applause a testament to the transformative night they had witnessed. In the heart of New Orleans, amidst the lingering resonance of music and the weight of unspoken truths, a new chapter had begun. It was a night of revelation, redemption, and the undeniable power of authenticity. The power outage at Preservation Hall became the catalyst for a series of revelations that would forever change the lives of those present. As the room plunged into darkness, a single voice broke through, Yvette's, raw and unfiltered. Her haunting rendition of an unreleased Beyoncé song silenced the murmurs, her voice carrying both vulnerability and strength. The crowd, mesmerized, began to hum along, unaware they were participating in a moment destined for history. When the lights flickered back on, Yvette stood illuminated, her distinctive bracelet catching Detective Johnson's sharp eye. The detective's earlier suspicions crystallized, but instead of exposing Yvette, she chose to protect her secret, recognizing the greater significance of the night. Marcus, emboldened by Yvette's performance, stepped forward to deliver his own song, one he had written but never dared to share. His voice, trembling at first, grew steadier with each note, drawing cheers and tears from the audience. For the first time, he saw himself not as a shadow of his idol but as an artist in his own right. Yvette, watching from the sidelines, smiled knowingly, her mission to inspire fulfilled. Their duet, an improvised blend of his original song and her melody, became the evening's defining moment, a seamless merging of two souls searching for authenticity. Backstage, Sophie Devereaux's carefully curated facade began to crumble. Confronted by Detective Johnson, Sophie admitted to manipulating the event to exclude certain performers, prioritizing image over talent. Her confession exposed the systemic biases that plagued the industry, prompting a public reckoning. The crowd, now aware of her actions, erupted in calls for accountability. Sophie's downfall marked a turning point, as local artists vowed to reclaim their voices and demand representation. Detective Johnson, risking her career, used the platform to address the racial profiling she had endured within the force, her courage sparking conversations about justice and reform. As the final song began, Yvette's transformation was complete. She removed her glasses and prosthetics, revealing her true identity as Beyoncé. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but instead of awe, there was understanding. Her decision to step into the shoes of an unknown artist had stripped away the barriers of fame, allowing her to connect with her audience on a deeper level. "This night was never about me," she said, her voice steady. "It's about the power of music to unite us, to remind us of who we are and who we can be." The concert ended with a standing ovation, the echoes of the night's performances lingering in the air. Marcus left the stage a changed man, his confidence soaring. Detective Johnson walked away with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to fight for justice both within and beyond the badge. And Beyoncé, now unmasked, left Preservation Hall not as a global icon but as a woman who had dared to rediscover herself. This extraordinary night in New Orleans became a catalyst for change, proving that music transcends boundaries and that authenticity holds the power to transform. Let this story inspire you to challenge perceptions, embrace vulnerability, and use your voice to create a better world. The stage is yours, step into it boldly. As the final notes of the evening echoed through Preservation Hall, the power outage became a metaphor for the night's revelations. In the darkness, Yvette's voice emerged, unfiltered and raw, captivating the crowd in a way that transcended fame or artifice. When the lights returned, Beyoncé's bracelet caught the spotlight, and gasps rippled through the audience as the truth dawned on them. Yet, instead of judgment, a wave of applause erupted, not for the superstar but for the courage of the woman who dared to strip away her identity and connect on a human level. Beyoncé's experiment had succeeded in ways she hadn't anticipated, forcing her to confront her own fears of vulnerability while allowing others to see her not as an icon but as a fellow dreamer. Marcus, bolstered by Yvette's earlier encouragement and the audience's energy, delivered an encore that brought the house to its feet. For the first time, he sang not as a man chasing validation but as an artist embracing his own worth. His performance became the night's heartbeat, a reminder that greatness doesn't require permission. As he exited the stage, he noticed Beyoncé's smile, no longer hidden behind Yvette's glasses, and realized the connection they'd shared wasn't diminished by her fame. Instead, it amplified his belief in himself. That night, Marcus's career took flight, but more importantly, so did his confidence. Detective Amara Johnson, notebook in hand, pieced together Sophie Devereaux's manipulations, exposing the organizers' exploitation of the event for personal gain. Sophie's downfall became a turning point, sparking a broader conversation about ethics in the music industry and the barriers faced by marginalized artists. Amara's decision to act, despite the risks to her career, marked her transformation from a conflicted officer to a symbol of integrity. Her choice resonated with the crowd, many of whom saw their own struggles reflected in her courage. The sketch of Yvette remained in her notebook, a reminder of the night's lessons about perception and truth. As the crowd dispersed into the humid New Orleans night, the city itself seemed transformed. Conversations sparked by the evening's events spilled into the streets, touching on race, privilege, and the unifying power of music. Preservation Hall, already steeped in history, now carried the weight of a new legend. The vintage microphone with the initials B.K. For Beyoncé, the experience was more than a social experiment, it was a reckoning. She had stepped into the shoes of her fans and walked away with a deeper understanding of the power of authenticity. For Marcus, the night was a beginning, not an end, as his name began to appear on marquees far beyond New Orleans. Detective Johnson's bravery inspired reforms within her department, while Sophie's exposure forced the industry to confront its biases. Each character left the hall changed, their paths diverging yet forever intertwined by the events of that extraordinary night. The story of that evening became a catalyst for change, a reminder that music, at its core, is about connection. As the echoes of jazz faded into the night, one truth remained: when we dare to embrace vulnerability, challenge assumptions, and celebrate our shared humanity, we create space for transformation. Let this story inspire you to listen more deeply, act more boldly, and see beyond the masks we all wear. After all, it's in those moments of raw honesty that the most profound change begins.